They don't strike when you're alert. They strike when you're relaxed, when you've let your guard down in the name of kindness, trust, or loyalty. That's how they work. They smile while sharpening the knife. They agree while planning your downfall. And the most dangerous part, they don't look like enemies. They look like friends, supporters, family. Machiavelli warned us, the greatest threat is never outside the gates. It's inside, sitting quietly, watching, gathering data, gaining your trust. These people don't destroy you overnight. They erode your strength slowly, through small, subtle betrayals you dismiss as accidents, until it's too late. If you've ever been betrayed, sabotaged, or humiliated by someone close, you know the feeling. That cold realization, you tolerated the wrong person too long. Not because you were weak, but because you were civilized, decent, predictable. Let me tell you something Machiavelli knew too well. Decency is a liability in a world ruled by power, and the only way to stay in control is to become ruthless in who you allow into your circle. Power is not just about what you gain, it's about what and who you remove. There are 5 types of behaviors Machiavelli would have never tolerated, not for a second, not even once, because each of them is a crack in the armor, a small hole that eventually floods your empire. They may come disguised as flaws or quirks, but beneath them lies poison. These are not mistakes you forgive. These are warnings you obey immediately. If you're serious about building a life that cannot be shaken, if you're done being drained, disrespected, or deceived, then you must know this. Some people are not to be helped. They are to be handled, silently, coldly, permanently. Because every king falls the moment he forgets this one rule. Weakness tolerated becomes power surrendered. And now, I'll show you the 5 behaviors Machiavelli would eliminate without mercy. The 5 kinds of people that are not just unacceptable, they are lethal. They rarely shout, they don't force, they don't threaten you with violence or open betrayal. That would be too obvious. Instead, they use your emotions against you. Guilt, loyalty, sympathy, and trust. These are their weapons. They wrap themselves in charm, act like your greatest supporter, and convince you that their needs should come before your instincts. Machiavelli saw this type clearly. The manipulator doesn't seek power directly. They borrow yours. They infiltrate your decisions with subtle suggestions, backhanded compliments, or perfectly timed weakness. They don't push you. They make you want to serve their interests. That is their genius and their danger. You'll notice them when things start shifting. Your plans don't quite go the way you wanted. You start sacrificing your priorities for theirs. You make excuses for their failures, defend their toxicity, and ignore the unease in your gut, because they've convinced you it's your job to protect them. But understand this, manipulators are not misguided, they're deliberate. Every guilt trip, every sob story, every compliment is calculated. They know your weaknesses and they feed them. They don't need to be stronger than you. They only need you to doubt your strength long enough to take control. Machiavelli's solution: cold separation. No explanations, no second chances. Once manipulation is detected, removal must be immediate, not because you're heartless, but because your power is priceless. And manipulators, like leeches, never stop draining. They don't improve. They adapt. The moment you show mercy, they learn how to hide better. The moment you explain your boundaries, they learn how to bend them. This type of person is a long-term cancer in your life. You won't notice the damage at first, but over time, you'll lose your vision, your clarity, and most importantly, your will to lead. You'll become reactive instead of strategic, emotional instead of calculated. And once that happens, you're no longer in control. Ask yourself, who makes you feel guilty for choosing yourself? Who smiles while constantly pulling your attention away from your goals? Who praises you just enough to keep you from leaving, but always keeps you just unsure enough to stay? That's the manipulator. And if you let them stay, don't be surprised when you no longer recognize yourself. Machiavelli would say, you are not obligated to nourish the snake simply because it pretends to be cold. If it slithers, you strike. If it twists your mind, you cut the cord. There is no redemption in those who feed on your clarity. You don't reform them. You don't educate them. You eliminate their access to your mind, your time, and your mission. The manipulator may not use a weapon, but make no mistake, their hands are bloody. And if you don't remove them early, their stain will spread through everything you build. They wear pain like armor and use suffering as currency. To the world, they are always the wounded, always oppressed, always misunderstood. But don't let the performance fool you. This is not about healing. It's about control. Chronic victims are not looking for solutions. They're looking for submission, yours. They cry louder than the truly broken. They make every situation about their hurt, their trauma, their endless misfortune. And if you dare set a boundary, they accuse you of being cold, selfish, heartless. That is their game, emotional blackmail. Machiavelli would see through it instantly, because this type of person isn't weak. They are strategic in their weakness. They use it to escape accountability. They weaponize their suffering to guilt you into carrying their burdens. And if you're not careful, you'll end up doing their work, fighting their battles, and sacrificing your peace to keep them from breaking. But here's the cold truth. They have no intention of getting better. Improvement means they lose the leverage. If they heal, they can't control you anymore. So they stay stuck, and they make you stuck with them. Watch them closely. When you win, they find a way to turn it into their loss. When you rise, they remind you how lucky you are, and how hard life has been for them. They won't say it outright, but their message is clear. Don't outgrow me. Don't leave me behind. Stay down here where I am, or you're a bad person. You'll find yourself walking on eggshells, managing their moods, apologizing for their feelings. And the more you give, the more they demand. You may tell yourself you're helping, but you're not. You're enabling, feeding the illusion that they're powerless and that your life should be paused for theirs. Machiavelli would say this: mercy toward the chronic victim becomes cruelty toward your mission, because every hour wasted on their emotional circus is time stolen from your empire. You don't owe your future to someone addicted to their past, and no amount of sacrifice will ever be enough for someone who survives by playing broken. The chronic victim is a parasite of purpose. They don't want elevation, they want sympathy. And sympathy is a powerful tool. It silences your logic. It blurs your judgment. It makes you forget that your peace matters too. But here's your law. When someone constantly bleeds on you for wounds they won't clean themselves, cut the connection. That's not cruelty, that's survival. You are not a therapist. You are not a savior. You are a strategist. And a strategist knows no kingdom survives when the ruler spends his time nursing those who refuse to stand. The chronic victim will call your strength cold. Let them. Better to be cold and free than warm and enslaved. They clap for you, but it's hollow. Their smile doesn't reach their eyes. Their compliments are coated with subtle jabs. They say things like, must be nice, or some people get all the luck. You laugh it off, pretend it's nothing, but deep down, you know there's poison in their praise. These are the envious. And Machiavelli considered envy one of the most corrosive forces in human nature. Why? Because envy doesn't always attack you openly. It watches, waits, pretends to admire while secretly hoping you fall. The envious don't hate your failures. They hate your success. They are tormented by your progress, your discipline, your rising influence. But they'll never say it. That would reveal their weakness. So they stay close, play polite, but they plant doubt like seeds. Are you sure this will work? You've changed lately. Don't forget where you came from. Harmless words, right, wrong. Envy is slow venom. It turns friends into saboteurs and supporters into silent competitors. And if you don't catch it early, it will corrupt your circle from within. Machiavelli knew that envy disguises itself as advice. The envious will frame their jealousy as concern. I just don't want you to burn out. I'm only trying to keep you grounded. They will cloak their resentment in love, in wisdom, in humor. But what they really want is for you to shrink, to doubt, to stall, because your growth reminds them of their stagnation. Your shine reveals their darkness. These people don't want to win. They just don't want you to win. And that's far more dangerous, because they'll sabotage subtly, not by attacking your vision, but by planting shadows in your mind, making you second-guess what you were once certain of, making you hesitate. And hesitation, as Machiavelli knew, is fatal. You cannot keep envious people close, no matter how familiar they are, because eventually, their resentment turns to action. Maybe they'll leak information. Maybe they'll spread doubt. Maybe they'll simply withdraw support when you need it most. Either way, they will fail you, intentionally. You don't argue with envy. You don't fix it. You distance from it ruthlessly, coldly, quietly. Ask yourself, who gets uncomfortable when you talk about your goals, who dismisses your wins as luck, who only supports you when you're struggling, but disappears when you start succeeding. That's your red flag. Machiavelli would advise, never reveal too much to a jealous man. His silence is not respect, it is restraint, and that restraint vanishes the moment he senses an opportunity to strike. So let them think you're cold, let them call you arrogant. The truth is, you're just not naive, because power is not just built by who you invite in, it's preserved by who you keep out. Loyalty is not loud, it's not dramatic. It reveals itself in silence, in sacrifice, in presence when no one is watching. But disloyalty is quiet until it becomes destructive. It waits, it studies, and when the winds change, so does its allegiance. Machiavelli warned, the promise made was a tool, the betrayal was always the plan. The disloyal don't carry daggers, they carry smiles. They aren't threats at first, they're allies, friends, lovers, even family. That's what makes them lethal. They get close enough to know your pulse, so they know exactly where to strike. Disloyalty rarely begins with betrayal. It begins with hesitation, with silence when you need support, with agreement in front of you, but criticism behind you, with decisions made not for principle, but for personal convenience. These people don't serve ideals, they serve opportunity. They will stand beside you when the fire is warm and the table is full, but the moment the storm hits, they vanish, and when your name is under attack, they suddenly don't want to get involved. And yet when you succeed again, they return offering false praise, hoping you forget their absence. But you must not forget, because once disloyalty has been revealed, it never disappears, it only hides, waiting for another chance. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He believed disloyal people are more dangerous than open enemies. An enemy prepares you, but a disloyal friend distracts you. They erode your clarity. They create blind spots. You begin to second-guess your judgment because you trusted them once, and that trust becomes a weapon turned against you. You must train your eye to detect the subtle signs. The one who gossips to you will gossip about you. The one who hesitates to defend you already doubts you. The one who flatters you in front of others, but undermines you in private, is already preparing their exit. And when they leave, they always say the same thing. It wasn't personal, but it was. Your loyalty was real. Theirs was rented. You must never beg for loyalty. You never plead for someone to stand beside you. Loyalty, like respect, is either instinctual or it's transactional. And transactional loyalty has an expiration date. Here is the cold doctrine. Once they betray you, never allow them access again. Not out of bitterness, but out of strategy. Because betrayal is not an accident, it's a decision. And people who make that decision once make it easier the second time. Machiavelli's rule: trust must be earned continually, not assumed eternally. One act of betrayal outweighs 100 kind words. One absence during your war outweighs 100 praises during your peace. Forgive if you must, but do not forget, and do not reinstate. The disloyal come disguised as harmless, even remorseful. But remember, snakes don't hiss until it's too late. The only safe move is distance. Complete and permanent. Burn the bridge. Erase the access. Guard the gate. Because in this world, your rise will always test those around you. And those who fail the test with betrayal do not deserve a second chance to harm you again. They don't want your growth. They want your obedience. They don't want partnership. They want possession. And the moment you begin to think for yourself, they panic, because control freaks don't love you. They love having power over you. They come wrapped in concern. I just want what's best for you. You're not thinking this through. You're going to ruin everything. But these aren't warnings. These are chains. Every word is a hook designed to pull you back under their influence, because your independence is their nightmare. When you stop needing them, they lose control. Machiavelli would tell you, control is the language of cowards who fear your freedom. The ones who attempt to dominate your choices do so because they know that once you taste freedom, you will never return. So they condition you early. They reward submission and punish deviation. They make you question your own instincts. Control freaks will disguise dominance as protection. They'll isolate you from new ideas, from new people, from anything that challenges their authority over your mind. Those people don't really care about you. You're better off without distractions. But the truth is, they are the only distraction. Their greatest fear isn't your failure, it's your success without them. Because if you succeed independently, you prove you never needed them. And that shatters the illusion they built, that they are essential, that they are wise, that they are your only path to clarity. These people measure their worth by your dependence, so they'll gaslight you when you challenge them. You're being irrational, you're so ungrateful. They will twist your rebellion into betrayal. But don't flinch, because when a manipulator loses control, they always play the victim. This is the critical law. Never explain your freedom to those who benefited from your captivity. You owe no one an apology for outgrowing their grip. Machiavelli understood that control must be internal, not external. True power is self-governed. It comes from knowing your own path, not from surrendering it to someone else's comfort. Control freaks will never stop unless you cut the strings completely. Partial freedom doesn't work. They'll use guilt, nostalgia, fear, anything to reattach the leash. But once you see the game, you have one obligation: disappear from it. Don't argue, don't justify, just exit. Quietly or explosively, whatever the situation demands, but make it final. Because your mind is a fortress, and the moment you let someone else dictate your thoughts, your steps, your beliefs, you've surrendered the throne. And let this be your final reminder: he who fears your independence was never your ally. He was your cage. And Machiavelli would say, better to walk alone with power than be surrounded by chains disguised as company. Now you see the pattern. Not all enemies carry swords. Some wear smiles, some offer help, some even say they love you. But their behavior reveals the truth. Their presence drains you. Their words confuse you. Their loyalty bends with the wind. And their proximity becomes a risk, not a refuge. Machiavelli never romanticized human nature. He didn't believe in hoping people would change. He believed in understanding what people are. And once you understand, you must act. The 5 behaviors you've just examined are not flaws. They are fatal viruses in your circle. The manipulator rewires your mind. The habitual victim infects your energy. The envious poisons your momentum. The disloyal waits with a dagger. The control freak fears your wings and clips them quietly. These aren't people you fix. They're people you remove. Without delay, without drama, without second chances. Because power doesn't thrive in confusion, and success doesn't survive in sabotage. You want a sharper mind, a stronger presence, a kingdom worth ruling. Then your circle must be filled with those who challenge you, support you, and respect your independence. Nothing less. No emotional hostages, no manipulators, no jealous ghosts. Machiavelli would say, a prince who surrounds himself with weakness invites chaos into his court. This is not about cruelty. It's about clarity. You weren't born to be emotionally blackmailed. You weren't born to be doubted, disrespected, or restrained. You were born to move forward with force, to command your life, to build, to conquer, to rise. And that rise demands ruthless boundaries. Let them call you cold. Let them call you arrogant. It means you're no longer predictable, no longer easy to manipulate, no longer theirs to control. So here is your final decree. Cut the manipulator, silence the victim, exile the envious, lock out the disloyal, destroy the grip of the controller, reclaim your mind, reclaim your power, reclaim your path.